back to the walk. So we said, when you begin this walk, you will need to work on the environment, and we need to work on this together. And you need to create for yourself another environment, like a virtual environment that is not existent with you, but it is existent in books. You read about the Prophet, you read about the companions, surround yourself by their stories, because most of the people around you are going to be pulling you down. Or if they pull you up, they won't pull you up enough. They won't pull you up far. But if you surround yourself by the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, you will get much encouragement. And graduation and contemplation, reflection on the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Next is really, we remind ourselves of the nature of this dunya. We remind ourselves of the nature of this dunya. This beautiful ayah from Surah Al-Hadid, تعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد كمثل غيث أعجب الكفار نباته ثم يهيج فتراه مصفرا ثم يكون حطاما وفي الآخرة عذاب شديد ومغفرة من الله ورضوان وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. Know that the life of this world is only play and amusement, pomp and mutual boasting among you, and rivalry in respect of wealth and children, as the likeness of vegetation after rain. Thereof, the growth is pleasing to the tiller, the farmer. Afterwards, it dries up, and you see it turning yellow. Then it becomes straw, it crumbles away. But in the hereafter, there is a severe torment, and there is forgiveness from Allah and good pleasure. Whereas the life of this world is only a deceiving enjoyment. A deceiving enjoyment like a mirage, a deceiving enjoyment because basically it is limited, it is transient, and everything that is transient compared to anything that is infinite is zero. Right? So this life, the word deceiving enjoyment here, when we say mirage, even though it exists, but that is math. That is simple math. Infinity divided by any number equals, or I'm sorry, it's the other way around. Any number divided by infinity equals zero. Any number, 1,000 years, divided by infinity. The result is zero. So that's the life of this world. But the beautiful example here, it's a Quranic example. It has to be beautiful. But this, here is the example. That is the example that is given to you in this verse. Do you see that leaf? That's all of us. After you fall off the branch, you crumble away. You dry out first, and you're dried out. Do you know when you're born you have about 75% of your body weight in water? And when you die, particularly if you die senile, you could have about 55% of your body weight in water. You dried out. Literally. Don't you see the difference in your complexion? Between this and a child who is like 9 or 10 and a baby. Do you see the baby's complexion? When they're first born? You're gradually drying out. But look, it's like a vegetation that comes after the rain, pleasing to the farmers. The little child is very pleasing, looks, children are loved by everybody. They look pleasant. You see in them hope and youth and everything, hopeful. And then you grow up. You're pleasing to the farmers as you grow. Everybody is looking. And then you reach a certain limit, threshold, the bell-shaped curve starts to go down. And then you dry out gradually, 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 until you fall off the branch, crumble away, and you're added to the dust of this earth. You become part of the dust of this earth. That's why one of the poets said, صحي هذه قبورنا تملأ الرحب فأين القبور من عهد عادي خفف الوطأ ما أظن أديم الأرض إلا من هذه الأجساد. Oh, my friend, look at our cemeteries. They fill the land. Where are the cemeteries from the time of Ad? Walk lightly on earth. I don't think that the crust of this earth is made out of anything but the bodies of our ancestors. So when you walk on the earth, you're walking on the bodies of the human beings that preceded you, and you will be part of that. So that is the example of this life. But you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. We've made of water everything that's living. So water, everything that is alive was made out of water. So once you're born, you start to lose water. Isn't that a sign that you're actually, that life is being taken away from you from the time you come out? A sign on how temporary this life is, how transient it is, that your life is being taken away from you from the time you come out, gradually, and until you die. So the idea here is you really want to just think about this over and over again. And when you look at yourself in the mirror and you see like some few gray hairs, or if you don't see the gray hairs, look at yourself in the mirror. You're different from a few years ago, and very soon you'll be much more different. And look at people around you, and look at life around you. It's a deceiving enjoyment. It's a deceiving enjoyment. People who think of this over and over again, they will never be. They think introspectively with contemplation, and they have tawfiq. They will never be misguided or fooled or deceived by it. And the next one is the big one, which is the remembrance of death. Because basically there are many phases of your existence. But the moment of death is particularly, and the event of death, musibatul maut, or the disaster of death, musibatul maut, has a particular significance. Because that is the first station of the hereafter you get to witness in this life. That is one of the stations of the hereafter that you witness, behold with your own eyes in this life. That's why Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, and we just said that when we were talking earlier about it, Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu would have more concern when death is mentioned than when the hereafter is mentioned. So when they asked him, why does death cause you all of this concern more than the hereafter? He said that is the first station. If it is good, what follows is better. And if it is bad, what follows will be worse. So that's why he used to get so concerned when death is mentioned in front of him. And the Prophet ﷺ said, أَكْثِرُوا ذِكْرَ هَذِهِ اللَّذَّاتِ. Frequently remember the interrupter of all enjoyments. Hadhin means interrupter, the cutter, the chopper, stopper, stops it, interrupts it, cuts all enjoyments. Because once you remember death, then you know that this enjoyment is temporary. External dhikr al-ladhat is not just to buy. You say to yourself, like you sit down and think of death, or you cannot do this unless you actually put effort into this. You need to put effort. Because sometimes when we think of abstract concepts, we as human beings are not very good at that. We want things that are more tangible. So make this more tangible for yourself. Make this more tangible for yourself. How do you make this more tangible for yourself? The next hadith makes it more tangible. The Prophet ﷺ, this hadith, Buraidah, he said, كنت نهيتكم عن زيارة القبور فزوروها. I had forbidden you before from visiting the graves, visit them. Now visit them. Why did he forbid them from visiting the graves? These were people that were attached to their ancestors, much glorification of the ancestors and so on. So he wanted to wean them off of all the attachments other than their attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once they were weaned, then you can go now and visit the graves. For they, Tirmidhi added, فَإِنَّهَا تُذَكِّرُ الْآخِرَةِ, for they remind you of death. Ibn Majah added, وَتُزَهِدُ فِي الدُّنْيَا, فَإِنَّهَا تُزَهِدُ فِي الدُّنْيا وَتُذَكِّرُ الْآخِرَةِ, for they cause this interest in the dunya and remind you of al-akhirah. Cause you have this interest in the dunya and remind you of al-akhirah. So basically here, you're making death a little bit more real by visiting the graves. Real. And you could make, and there are many other things that you could do, whereby death becomes more real in your thoughts. It is important, like at the funerals, this funeral alert that you get, attending those funerals, carrying the deceased, burying and washing. And I do prescribe for you in particular washing. Because when you wash and you see how this human being is completely helpless, completely powerless at this point, and that is, if that is not a wake-up call for you, then what could be a wake-up call? So you wash, and you try to remind yourself. Some of the righteous predecessors would actually have graves into their home, in their homes, and then they would get down in the grave. And then when he gets down in the grave, he would say, رَبِّ ارْجِعُونِ. Oh my Lord, return me to life. And then he would come out and he would say to himself, you're back to life. Now work. So you try to make this real, tangible. If you know the table where you wash the bodies, lay on it. One day you will lay on it. Try to lay on it now. Don't have like a grave in your home. Just lay on that table. And think of the time that you will be washed. Ayat in the Quran about death. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَلَّا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ التَّرَاقِي وَقِيلَ مَنْ رَاقٍ وَظَنَّ أَنَّهُ الْفِرَاقِ وَالْتَفَّتِ السَّاقُ بِالسَّاقِ إِلَى رَبِّكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْمَسَاقِ. No, behold, when the soul reaches the collarbone, كَلَّا إِذَا بَلَغَتِ التَّرَاقِي وَقِيلَ مَنْ رَاقٍ. And then the people around them will be saying, who can cure him? They'll be looking for a doctor. They'll be looking for a cure. They'll be looking for someone to help. But he or she وَظَنَّ أَنَّهُ فِرَاقٌ. But the dying person is now certain that it is the time for separation. وَظَنَّ أَنَّهُ فِرَاقٌ. They will be looking for a cure, but he is now in غمرات الموت. He is now in the stupor of death. He is now witnessing, beholding the beginning of the next phase of the journey, Hayat al-Barzakh. So he knows it's done. And it is time for departure, it's time for separation. وَظَنَّ أَنَّهُ الْفِرَاقُ وَالْتَفَّتِ السَّاقُ بِالسَّاقِ. And one leg is wound over the other, or about the other, convulsions of death. إِلَى رَبِّكَ يَوْمَئِذٍ الْمَسَاقُ. To your Lord shall be the procession on that day. So you think of, you try to make this more real, and think of the death, of those who are before us. Think of the death of the Prophet ﷺ, and think how the Prophet ﷺ suffered from sakarat al-maut, the stupor of death. The Prophet ﷺ. But you will die in the state, that you deserve, as you lived. You'll die as you lived. What did the Prophet ﷺ do when he was alive? He tried to save humanity. So what was he doing when he died? What was he saying? What did Anas say, the last thing that the Prophet ﷺ said? الصلاة والصلاة وملكت أيمان. And this is not chosen like this. Salat as-salah, I enjoin you to preserve the prayers, take care of the prayers. وَمَا مَلَكَتْ أَيْمَانُكُمْ, and those whose your right hands possess. That's about everything, right? Because that's about حق الله وحق العباد, the rights of the Lord and the rights of the people, the rights of the Creator and the rights of the creation. But he chose the salah because it's the most important of all rights, and it's the connection between you and the creation. And he chose the kindness to the slaves because they are the weakest sector of the society, the weakest, most deserving of mercy and kindness. So he mentioned them as far as the rights of the creation go. And for the rights of the Creator, he mentioned the salah is the most important, and it is the connection between you and him that will bring you back if you lose your way. You think of Umar radiallahu anhu when he died, it's amazing how he is keen on finding someone to replace him after he was stabbed, and he was keen on, grabbing Abdurrahman ibn Auf to replace him, to lead the prayer, for the Muslims to finish their prayer correctly. And then when this young man walks in, and he had this bad, like his garment was below his ankles. And keep in mind, Omar was waiting for death. He's bleeding from his abdomen, and they told them, that's it. There is no cure. So he's continuing. So he's continuing to bleed from his abdomen, and then this man walks in, the very young man walks in, and then he sees him. See how careful they were with following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and then he said to him, Ya ibn akhi irfa thawbak, oh my, brother of my, or son of my brother, Nafi, irfa thawbak, raise your garment, فإنه أتقى لربك وأنقى وأبقى لثوبك. It is more pious towards your Lord, and it is cleaner for your garment. That is his concern. That is how he's dying. He's concerned about, basically following the legacy of the Prophet ﷺ. And likewise, there you find beautiful stories of how you end your life as you lived it. Abu Zar'a, this is like a beautiful story. Could somewhat be funny. But Abu Zar'a, when he was dying, Abu Zar'a is a great scholar of hadith, muhaddith. So when he was dying, the students around them, they figured, we want to remind them to say La ilaha illallah. But he's Abu Zar'a. How could we remind them to say La ilaha illallah? He is Abu Zar'a. So they figured, let's mention the hadith. He taught them the hadith. So they started to say, Haddathana, so and so told us. And he was, in very close to death. So he picked up the chain and he continued it. So he said, Haddathana so and so from so and so from so and so from so and so. He knew from the beginning of the chain what hadith were they talking about. The Messenger ﷺ said, what was the hadith about? The hadith is the hadith where the Messenger ﷺ said, Man kana akhiru kalami la ilaha illallah dakhala al-jannah. Whosoever's last word or sentence is La ilaha illallah will enter paradise. Whosoever says La ilaha illallah, the last thing before he dies, he enters paradise. That's the hadith. So he said, Haddathana fulan fulan. Whosoever, he said, Man kana akhiru kalamihi La ilaha illallah, and he died. The idea here is, you just can't do this unless you live it. You can't have control at that time unless this is how you lived, and this is for what, this is the purpose of your life, this is what you were busy doing. There are other examples on the other side of people that, continue to sing, for instance, when they're dying. So there are both examples. But to remember death is not just by saying to yourself, I will remember death. There is much work that needs to be done. Try to make it more real. Try to read about the stories of those before. Try to follow the funerals, wash the dead. If you can get down into the graves, that is also such an experience. And if you can lay down in one of the graves before it is closed, just to feel how it is like down there, that is also a helpful experience. Stop here and pray Maghrib and come back inshallah. So the next step, practical tip here, is to keep a distance from his forbidden sanctuary. And this is one of the hadith of Arba'in Nawawiyya, the hadith Imam Nawawi collected, considered to be most essential in the understanding of the deen. And this is hadith Nu'man ibn Bashir. He reported from the Prophet ﷺ that he said, this is one of the famous hadith, that which is lawful is plain and that which is unlawful is plain, and between the two of them are doubtful matters about which not many people know. Thus he who avoids doubtful matters clears himself in regard to his religion and his honor. But he who falls into doubtful matters falls into that which is unlawful, like the shepherd who pastures around the sanctuary, all but grazing therein, Truly, every king has a sanctuary, and Allah's sanctuary is His prohibitions. Truly, in the body there is a morsel of flesh, which if it be whole or rectified, the whole body will be rectified. And if it is diseased, the whole body will be corrupt or diseased. Now, so what does this have to do with purification per se? There is an obvious relationship between staying away from haram, and not only staying away from haram. The Prophet ﷺ told you to stay away from the dubious matters, because if you fall into the dubious matters, you're closer to haram. Remember when we talked about the parable that Imam Ibn Qudama gave us in his book Al-Wasiyya about the people on the island? And if you get closer to the palace, the forbidden sanctuary of the king, the temptation is so great. So why do you get there? Why do you get closer so that you could cause yourself more temptation and you become more likely to fall into haram? Stay away, stay away, stay away. That's why the Sahaba used to say that we would abandon 9/10 of that which is halal out of fear from haram. So you keep the larger margin of safety, you keep the more indicative of the health of one's heart. And but this does not mean that you debilitate yourself, because Muslims also collectively have to survive. And if you abide by this standard of the Sahaba, during a time like ours, you may become debilitated, you may not be able to do it, but within the circumstance that we live in, within the environment that we live in, and the time and location and so on, you do of this as much as you can. Push yourself as much as you can without causing debilitation to yourself or to our community. Because of the community of the believers started to avoid 9/10 of that which is halal, out of fear of falling in that which is haram. That which is haram in our environment is different. The proportion between halal and haram in our environment is different from halal and haram in their environment. For them, haram was much more limited than it is nowadays, and halal was more abundant than it is today. This does not mean that we should break every law, that we should come close to haram, and that we should have no wara whatsoever. It just means that the proportions will be a little bit different. You may not be able to live up to the standard of the Sahaba because of the difference in times, because they have an ultimately high standard. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned that at the end of the hadith, the morsel of flesh in the body, which is the heart, if it's rectified, the whole body is rectified. What does this refer to? It refers to two things. It refers to the question of the shubuhat. How do you identify the shubuhat? You need to ask your heart where the shubuhat are. Because that is not that you would not ask the scholar. You would ask the scholar and then you ask your heart. You double check with your heart. Go back to your heart and send it through your heart one more time. I want to do this. You go to ask the scholar, he tells you, oh, okay, go ahead, do it, and so on. And sometimes the scholar may be too busy. By the way, this could happen. The scholar could be too busy. He may not understand the issue very well. You may also, because of partiality that human beings have, not tell him the whole story, because he'll keep some information on the side, so that and then you get the fatwa from scholar. Send it through your heart one more time. Send it through your heart, and it is important. The second hint here is that he's telling you that this audacity to commit that which is to devour that which is dubious, or to do that which is dubious, will harm your heart. Will harm your heart. And you cannot afford to harm your heart, because that is, the one organ that you cannot afford to harm, because if you harm it and if you ruin it, taint it, then you're ruined, and because of how your heart is corrupt, you're all corrupt. So stay away from that which is haram and keep a cushion of safety between you and that which is haram. Particularly in dealings with people, make sure that you keep a margin of safety with dealing with business partners, like spouses and so on. Give up some of your rights. And do this for Allah and tell yourself, enjoy that. Enjoy the samaha, which is this generosity of character. Give up some of your rights. That's fine. Take it. Whether it's spouse, business partner, whatever, just take it. And that is how you train yourself to keep a distance. You're not so greedy. You want 100% of my rights, 100% of my everything. Because whoever told you that you could actually identify the 100%? Whoever told you that your 100% is not in fact 130%? Because it's very difficult. It needs a lot of, transparency, and it needs a lot of piety to be able to identify that fine line of the 100%. Identify your weaknesses. Think which of these is the Trojan horse of the shaitan into your heart: lust, greed, pride, ostentation, power, and leadership, or is it something else? These are just but some examples, but these are some common examples of the things that cause people, much trouble. Lust. The Prophet ﷺ in the hadith, Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu, ما تركت بعدي فتنة أضر على الرجال من النساء. هي أضر على الرجال من النساء. I have not left behind a fitna that is more harmful to men than women. And, it is vice versa, but men, and the weakness of men in this regard may be, in fact, a little bit worse than women. Women may have a little bit more immunity than men in this regard. So you do not necessarily say that the opposite is completely true, because there may be a difference here. We know that when Allah mentions, whenever the Prophet ﷺ mentions men, the same applies to women. Allah also, whenever the men are mentioned, the same applies to women. Because the Prophet said, النساء شقائق الرجال. Men are but the full sisters of women, meaning it's whatever applies here applies there, vice versa. It's reciprocal. Unless there are reasons to think that it may not be completely applicable to women. This particular ruling may not be completely applicable to women because of the difference or in nature between the two genders. And here in this particular hadith, ما تركت بعدي فتنة أضر على الرجال من النساء. I have not seen a fitna behind me worse on men than women. It may not be exactly reciprocal, or the opposite may not be exactly true, because women may have a little bit easier time dealing with this fitna than men. For men, the Prophet says, this is your number one fitna. So beware. This is your number one fitna. That is for men collectively. That is for men collectively. Does this apply to each and every man? Some men have this interest in the other gender. And does this apply to each and every man? Not necessarily each and every man, but this applies to men collectively. But for some other men, their weak point may be something different. Their weak point may be greed. Their weak point, or their weaker point, may be, power, leadership, something else. So individually, you want to identify your weak spot. Why do you want to identify your weak spot? That needs a lot of work. You know where the shaitan is coming into your heart. Because keep in mind, once the shaitan gets into your heart, uses like one of these as the Trojan horse, to get into your heart. You know the story of the Trojan horse. Okay. So once the shaitan uses like one of these weaknesses as a Trojan horse to get into your heart, working from inside is much easier than working from outside, right? He will be inside. He will be in. So to cause you ruin and destruction, when he is already inside, he has control. You know, he got in. Then it is much more detrimental. So what you need to do is to stand guard by those weak points and make sure that you fight him off and fight him off and fight him off and fight him off. And start by your weakest points, and then you try to guard all the other areas. But it is helpful, very helpful, to recognize where your weakest point or what your weakest point is. So the Messenger ﷺ said this, and this is reported by Ibn Hibban and others, Abu Nu'aym also, from Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu. He said, تُبْصِرُ الْقَذَاةَ فِي عَيْنِ أَخِيكَ وَتَنْسَى الْجِزْعَ فِي عَيْنِكَ. You see the speck in your brother's eye and overlook the log in yours. Like, so that is why it is important, in order for you to identify your weakness, don't be too busy identifying everybody else's weaknesses. Because you don't have time for all the people. You either focus on yours or focus on everybody else. You can't, you can't. And you're not responsible to correct their weaknesses. In fact, Hassan al-Basri, someone kept on cursing al-Hajjaj. Al-Hajjaj was tyrant and bad and evil, and we do believe this, and he was such a bad person, an evil person. But should you waste your life, just cursing al-Hajjaj and talking about the evil of al-Hajjaj? So Hassan al-Basri gave him a very good answer. He said to him, the smallest, your smallest sayyi'ah will be harder on you on the day of judgment than his biggest sayyi'ah. Your smallest sayyi'ah will be harder on you on the day of judgment than his biggest sayyi'ah. He will be carrying his sayyi'ah, you will be carrying yours. So mind yours. That's why you need to rotate the telescope. You can't, you don't need to rotate the telescope, because you could just find like a cheap mirror. You won't need like an expensive telescope. Next is to be proactive and, to start early. Starting early is important. So Ibn Qayyim says this in his book Al-Fawaid, the book that we quoted the reflection on the Quran from. It's a very beautiful book. He said this. He said, ward off the inputs, for if you don't, it will become a thought. Ward off the thought, for if you don't, it will become a craving. Fight it, for if you don't, it will turn into resolve and determination. And if you don't ward it off, it will become an action. And if you don't resist it with its opposite, it becomes a habit, and it will be difficult for you to get rid of it. So the shaitan starts with throwing something in your mind. That is a khatra, the impulse. And he finds that you are really reckless about it. He just throws something in your mind. And you don't fight it off, you don't repel it away. You're reckless about it. So the shaitan sends it back, and sends it back. It becomes a thought. The thought becomes a craving. The craving becomes determination and resolve. And then that becomes an action, materializes. It becomes an action. And this action, if you don't stop it early, it becomes a habit. And habits are very hard for human beings to stop. So pause to think about your worship. us to think about your worship. Because so Imam al-Ghazali rahimahullah, in his book Al-Ihya, he had the 1/4 of the book, 1/4 of the book on the asrar al-ibadat, the wisdoms, the beauties, secrets, subtleties in the acts of worship. So that you train yourself to think about what the salah is about, what the siyam is about, how do you reap the benefits of the salah and the siyam and the sadaqah. What does it mean to give sadaqah? I'm treating myself from my greed, I am showing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that His pleasure matters to me more than my greed for wealth. Didn't we say that these are the things that got us out of paradise? Greed for wealth and longevity. I am showing, I'm proving now to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to myself that I can do it. I can get this much money and give it away to earn the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and myself that I can do it and that I can resist my greed. And I train myself to do this, and the first time it may be hard, and the second time it may be easier. First time you start with something little. Don't start with something and then go home and cry and regret it, because it's so bad in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you regret something good that you did for Him. So do something that you want, that won't make you go home and cry and regret. Particularly, don't do it in front of the people, so to show off and then go home and cry and regret, because this is like what is it? Lose-lose. Like the first time you did it for the wrong intention, and then you're regretting something that was good, like a good act. You're regretting it. So that is really so miserable. So think, you're going to pray, think of what the prayer means. We just talked about how you should really think of the salah as the munajat. The Prophet called it this way. Munajat, it's a soft conversation between you and Allah. What does it mean to be a soft conversation? The Prophet said that I would be, Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, will be looking at me as long as I don't turn away. What does that mean? And if I truly believe it, well, this is very hard, and this is very hard for all of us. And don't think that the one who is speaking to you now can actually, we're pointing to the top of the mountain, and we're trying all to get there. I'm not calling you from the top. It is hard, and oftentimes you pray, absent-mindedly, because you have to go somewhere, and because you have to do this. It's a struggle, but try to get as much as you can out of the prayer. Try to think that you're going to be in this soft conversation with Allah. Enjoy it sometimes. If you can't enjoy it with every prayer, enjoy it, in Salat al-Fajr and Salat al-Isha. Enjoy it in Salat al-Fajr. Enjoy it once a week. If we get to enjoy this every once in a while, you see the sweetness, you go back to it, right? You go back to it if you taste it. So we should try. We should try. You think, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be looking at me, will be hearing me, will be responding to my dua, will be responding to my recitation of Al-Fatiha. Likewise, with every act. And beware of them becoming mere habits, because they turn into mere habits for most people. They become mere habits. That's why you find people that are prayerful and really fast and they do everything, but too bad. And are you reaping their benefits? And if not, then why? We need to look for the light. Learn the etiquettes and practice, marital life, seeking provisions, friendship, mingling, and seclusion, ordaining good and forbidding bad, travel and companionship, eating and drinking, even using the lavatory. The etiquettes of the Prophet ﷺ in every regard. Try to change your lifestyle. Change your lifestyle. Try to learn what the Prophet ﷺ did concerning all of these. Concerning marital relationships, how he treated his wives, what did he do, how did he act, in risk, seeking provisions, in friendship, in mingling and seclusion, in ordaining good and forbidding bad, in travel and companionship, in eating and drinking, and every act that he did, even using the lavatory. When you do this, and you do it for the sake of Allah, can you imagine someone who is this observant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deviating too far? If he's observant in everything, he walks into the restroom or with the left hand, he comes out with the left foot, and comes out with the right, and he says that before and after, and when he eats and so on, and he eats, tries to follow the sunnah, and then everything. These are just not these acts. These acts are blessed in themselves, and they're good in themselves. And you eat like the 1/3 and 1/3 and so on, good by themselves. But when you're observant of them, it means that you're in remembrance. Because the best way you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the best way you remember Allah isn't through constant submission. Constant submission. So the observation of these things means that you are in remembrance of Allah. You are in remembrance of Allah. You're doing this for the sake of Allah. And make sure also these acts do not become a second habit, because sometimes you could grow up in a family that, a good family, they taught you, how to do all of this stuff, the sunnah way, and then you carry on with this and you're without much thought, and they become like the acts of worship, also a second nature. But renew your intention, renew your niyyah. Renew your niyyah. I'm doing this for the sake of Allah. I'm doing this to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One who is keen on the practice of these etiquettes will be distanced from harm and negligence of the obligations. Okay, practice mercy. And this is really a big one. The Prophet ﷺ said, man is doomed and a loser if Allah does not put compassion for mankind in his heart. خَابَ عَبْدٌ وَخَسِرٌ لَمْ يَجْعَلْ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى فِي قَلْبِهِ رَحْمَةً لِلْبَشَرِ. So man is doomed and a loser if Allah does not put compassion for mankind in his heart. And he did not only say Muslims, by the way, here. He said mankind, للبشر, mankind. خاب عبد وخسر لم يجعل الله تعالى في قلبه رحمة للبشر. Man is doomed and a loser if Allah does not put compassion for mankind in his heart. And then the Prophet ﷺ also said, الرحمون يرحمهم الرحمن. The most merciful has mercy on those who show mercy. Be merciful to those who are on earth, so that the one who is in the heaven will show mercy on you, or have mercy on you. So this hadith is all about rahmah. So showing mercy now, you could certainly, and you should sometimes, go to, because we have become very virtual creatures. So you could go to your laptop and go to the, Islamic Relief, ICNA Relief, Kinder, whatever, this, that, and donate $100, $200, $1,000, $2,000 for the relief here or the relief there. That is good or bad? That's certainly good. But there is a need for you to seek out the poor and give them. Experience this merciful giving, this charitable giving, merciful acts, kindness firsthand. Because doing it, from behind the computer screen is good. It can sometimes be efficient, and we should do it. But I'm saying that this is not enough. You really need to do this. You really need to look out for the poor and give the poor, put effort into this. Find them, seek them in your community, and reach them and give them firsthand, because that has a powerful effect on the health of your heart and the tenderness of your heart. So the virtual thing is good, but there is more that we need to do. So looking after the weak and elderly, visiting the sick, helping the needy, feeding the hungry, caring for the orphans, all of these acts, multitudes of hadith about the benefits of these acts, how these acts can really transform you. And many of these acts you need to do them with people. So you need to organize yourselves. You need to also create the environment, the structures within your communities, within your masajid, that will help you perform those acts. And this is work that needs to be done. Like, I think of every place in the United States, any hospital in the United States, the chaplains of the hospital should have the number, the cell phone number of some Muslim to be called when there is a Muslim that needs a visitor. Can you imagine that sometimes Muslims stay in the hospital for like a week and 2 and 3 and a month and 2, and none of their Muslim brethren ever knows about it or considers visiting them. And because just think of when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you, I became sick. Allah will tell you, I became sick and He didn't visit me. And then you will say, how did you become sick, oh my Lord? And you are the Lord. And He will tell you, my servant so-and-so became sick and He did not visit him. Had you visited him, had you visited him, you would have found me there. So this is work that needs to be done. Here in this ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَوْلَا فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَتُهُ مَا زَكَى مِنْكُمْ مِنْ أَحَدٍ أَبَدًا يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان ومن يتبع خطوات الشيطان فإنه يأمر بالفحشاء والمنكر ولولا فضل الله عليكم ورحمته ما زكى منكم من أحد أبدا ولكن الله يزكي من يشاء والله سميع عليم. O you who have believed, do not follow the footsteps of the shaitan, and whoever follows the footsteps of the shaitan, indeed he enjoins immorality and wrongdoing, and if not for the favor of Allah, had it not been for the favor of Allah upon you and His mercy, not one of you would have been pure, would have been purified. Had it not been for the favor of Allah and His mercy on us, none of us would have been purified. None of us could be purified without the favor of Allah and His mercy. Not one of you would have been pure, ever, but Allah purifies whom He wills, and Allah is hearing and knowing. So your frequent supplication, your constant supplication for purification, that is part of As-Sirat al-Mustaqim. Is As-Sirat al-Mustaqim only about the acts of the body or the bodily acts? No, it is not. You say Ihdina As-Sirat al-Mustaqim how many times a day? 17 times. But really, how many times do we really say it? No, how many times do we really, when we say Ihdina As-Sirat al-Mustaqim, you're actually aware of what you're saying. You actually mean what you say. You reflect on it a little bit. Guide me to the straight path, like, I need your guidance concerning everything, every affair in my life, my relationships and my actions and my choices, my silences, abstentions, movement, stillness. Guide me, guide me, guide. So when we say اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, we say it 17 times a day. If we try to mean it 3 or 4 times a day, try to mean it, like try to just say, it may be helpful to slow down when you get to it. Just slow down, pause a little bit, slow down. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط. To reflect on what you're saying and to send it through your heart. Send it through your heart before it comes on your tongue. Finally, ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. Our Lord, let not our hearts deviate after you have guided us. ولكل هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Any pressing questions? Yes.
That was a life-changing course. Everybody involved in organizing. I had a question from, I believe it was Friday, I'd like to ask you. How can you differentiate between riyat, concerns with sincerity and the intention, and the works or thoughts that may be provoked by shaitan? Is this line sometimes blurred?
Differentiate between riya and thoughts that are provoked by the shaitan?
Riya or issues concerning like your niyyah, your intention with a particular action.
An obsession. Riya, because sometimes people get obsessive about their intention to the point where they stop working. Is that what you mean?
I want to focus less on riya and more so on intention, on interference with intention even before the act takes place or even after an action takes place.
How would you identify that this is the work of the shaitan?
Right, whether this is just a thought that was provoked by shaitan meant to interfere somewhat with your intention or get you to stop doing an act, or if this is a serious concern that requires attention.
Oh, I see. Well, the first answer to this is that you will not stop anything out of fear from riya. You will carry on, because it would be very easy for the shaitan if he figured out that whenever he comes to you and sends a thought into your mind that you are doing this for riya, you're going to stop it. He can make you stop everything. He can make you stop everything. So lesson number 1 is that you will continue to do everything, but you will continue to purify your intentions. And the purification of your intentions is not basically sort of like a cookbook recipe concerning each and every act. And that's what we need to also understand. Like many times we want to have khushu' in the prayer, and many times we have difficulty having khushu' in the prayer. So what should we do? Well, we can talk about what we should do. Quiet environment, don't have distracting stuff around you, make good wudu, think of it, this, that. But if your heart does not have khushu' outside of the prayer, how will it have khushu' inside the prayer? Do you think that saying Allahu Akbar is like a switch that you turn on and then all of a sudden you're in khushu'. If Allah is not in the center of your focus outside of the prayer, how could He be in the center of your focus after you say Allahu Akbar? So it's a holistic approach to the issue. Likewise, the issue of intentions and how you purify them and how you remove the impurities is not, although you try with every action, but it is a holistic approach to the issue. And some of the practical tips here is to do a lot more acts in private, and train yourself, and then see if you enjoy those acts. And if you're not enjoying those acts, keep on doing them until you enjoy them. So go do something good. Pray in the last third of the night without anyone knowing, or fast without telling anyone, or go give charity without letting anyone know, or go visit someone sick without letting anyone know, or go visit the graves alone without, friends and good fellowship and all of that. Do these things and keep on doing them. That is basically a training of ikhlas, like the training of forbearance. Training of forbearance is by basically holding your anger back. One time you will fail, the other time you will succeed. The next time you try to do it, you figure out ways to do it, or go make wudu, sit down, this, that. Likewise with the issue of sincerity. There are certain acts that grow sincerity in one's heart, and those are the acts that are done in private. That's why Imam Ahmad reported from Zubair ibn Awam that the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمْ أَنْ يَكُونَ لَهُ خَبِيئَةٌ مِنْ عَمَلٍ صَالِحٍ فَلْيَفْعَلْ. Whichever one of you can hide some of his good deeds, let him hide them. Whichever one of you who can have some hidden. Khabi'a means what? From khabba'a, hide. Khabi'a is something that is hidden. مَنْ اسْتَطَاعَ مِنْكُمْ, whoever of you can, and يكون له خبيئة من عمل صالح, can have some hidden good deeds, let him do this. Because that is what will grow the sincerity in one's faith. So do those things, and the other things that you have done or that you are doing in public, do more of them in private and hide them. The awliya Allah Azza wa Jalla, and each and every mu'min has some degree of walaya, of being the friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because awliya Allah, ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون. So Allah described awliya Allah by two things: الذين آمنوا وكانوا يتقون, those who believe and have piety. So those are awliya Allah. So everybody has some degree of walaya, but awliya Allah salihin, in the sense, in the complete sense of the word, are the people who reach the higher rankings and the higher stations, and those could actually get karamat from Allah Azza wa Jalla. And the karamat can also be given to others. Those are the miracles of the awliya versus the miracles of the anbiya. And the difference between the miracles of the awliya versus those of the anbiya is that the anbiya show their miracles, because the miracles are meant for a challenge, to prove their message. I came with a message, and here is my proof on it. So they show their miracles. So the Prophet ﷺ showed them, how Allah split the moon for them, and showed his companions the water coming out of his hands, and the many things the many physical miracles that the Prophet ﷺ had, in addition to the Quran. But the many physical miracles the Prophet showed them. Sayyidina Isa, likewise, Sayyidina Musa, likewise, all of the prophets, they showed. The wali does not need to prove anything, because he's not bringing a message. So the scholars, the verifying scholars of this path of tazkiyah, they say that the awliya, the true awliya, are not the ones who show off those favors or those basically supernatural events that happen to them, but they hide those as much as a woman would hide her menstrual blood. That is the expression they used, just to show you how secretive they are about it. like how much they hide. Like if someone was shown a karama by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he would be so keen not to let anyone know of it, or not, because of the pollution of their intention that could happen if people came to know about the karamat. So you hide things, and you do things in private to seek the more devotion for your heart, and naturally the intention will be rectified. That does not mean that you do not do this exercise with each and every action and you wait for the holistic approach to work. No, it doesn't mean that. But it means that with the partial treatment of this action and that action, do not expect a full cure until you implement this holistic approach to treatment. What do we do when you're asked or being asked or being called to do something good? Charity, projects, etc. And we feel guilty, so we make a commitment to doing those good things. Is it possible to realign or renew your intention so that it will be accepted and pleasing to Allah? Allah said in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, إن تبدوا الصدقات فنعمها هي وإن تخفوها وتؤتوها الفقراء فهو خير لكم ويكفر عنكم من سيئاتكم. إن تبدوا الصدقات, if you show your charity, فنعمها هي. How excellent is that? وإن تخفوها وتؤتوها الفقراء, and if you hide them and give them to the poor, that is better. So the first one he said, نعمها هي, excellent, good. And then he said, that's even better if you hide them and give them to the poor. That is better. So, and the Prophet ﷺ used to raise funds for the various ventures. Like if someone was poor, he would raise funds for them. If someone was hungry, he would raise funds. He would say to his companions, who can host this for the night and feed them? That is fundraising, brothers. It is not necessarily, whatever is done in the masajid nowadays. We were somewhat like too resentful of this, but it has to be done. Fundraising in the masajid, and so it has to be done. Maybe we need to be a little bit more sort of creative about ideas and methods and this and that. But at the end of the day, we are a community that is being formed, constructed from scratch, and we do need the funds to do this stuff. So when you give money in front of the people, if everyone tried to give money in hiding or in private, then we will not have fundraisings. Then we will not have, basically there is like an aura that comes with the group action. Like people encourage each other. It's like the sentiment of generosity and so on. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ would stand up and raise funds for Ghazwat al-Usra, the battle of the hardship. And then Uthman brings in money, and sometimes Abu Bakr would bring money, Umar would bring money, they compete. So that is helpful. But are you only giving in public? That would be concerning. If you give in public only, that would certainly be concerning. But if you give in public and private, and when you give in public, you try as much as you can to have the right intention. And part of this intention is to stimulate others to give. Because everything is contagious. Human beings are so suggestible. And they're so, affected and impacted by behavior of others. So much so. It's not about teenagers, and it is not about the kids, and it's about all of us. We get so affected and impacted by the behavior of people around us, and it becomes contagious. So if everybody sitting in the masjid You know, and you can imagine, like, if the fundraiser was not able to do a good job at the first minute, he's done. Why? Because it becomes contagious. That indifference or, you know, carelessness or whatever becomes contagious. It goes through the crowd very quickly. And if he was able to recruit the sympathy of a couple of brothers, in fact, some fundraisers have like tricks, amazing tricks. Anyway, but anyway, if he is able to recruit the sympathy of a couple of brothers at the beginning, it goes through the whole crowd. This, you know, generosity. Right? So I think that we should still give in public, but we should also give in private. And when we give in public, try as much as you can to clear your intentions. Some, you know, because things have to be done in public, brothers. There are certain things that we must do in public. We pray in public, and we pray Jama'ah in public. And so the zakah has to be given in front of people versus the voluntary charity. The zakah is collected by the state in Islam. So it is given in front of people versus the voluntary charity. So there are things that we need to do in public. How can an individual identify the recommended level of moderation when it comes to loving your wife or your spouse? That's difficult. I think avoiding the feeling of neglect or the feeling of infatuation. Litmus paper test. Litmus paper test. There will always be conflict between the, you know, chances to measure whether you will favor Allah's pleasure over your wife or husbands, or vice versa. I don't think that you can't identify those opportunities. There will be opportunities for you to figure out, you know, where there is conflict. If there is never a conflict, then your wife is an angel. Or your husband. If there is never a conflict. But there will be chances, there will be instances where there will be conflict. And those will be your litmus paper test. If it is so easy for you to say, I would never, you know, displease Allah, no matter what, who and where and why, and no one can ever dream of this, then you're safe. Then the love is moderate. There is no competition here. No competition. If you know, should I do it, should I not? You know, she'll get really upset, or he'll get really upset. Then there is like some degree of competition. Even if at the end of the day, if you say, no, this is not this, not, you know, I can't do this. This will not, Allah will not be pleased with me if I do that. But then just the fact that there was like some reluctance and thought about it indicates that that it's coming close here. And that is when you need to work on it. And if you say, you know, I will please my wife, you know, and then I will repent, or then it exceeded the limit. Then you're late. how or what is the best way to advise someone? Abu Sumayya, for your concluding remarks and everything, how many minutes do you need so that we can end at 6 p.m. sharp? You need just 1 minute? Okay. So should we end at 6 including the salah or without the salah? Okay. Okay, we'll end at 6 without the salah and then we'll pray after 6 p.m. So how or what is the best way to advise someone who is distraught, in despair, and is seeking the love and sincere connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? If the mind cannot remember all the steps we learned on this topic, is there a simple way to start / help advise or guide them? If they heard what we said, I said earlier, that the heart does not forget like the mind. And if the mind forgets, the heart will not forget. But if they did not hear and they have not come across this, then you would encourage them to learn. You would encourage them to learn. And if they can't learn, then the simplest of those reminders would be sufficient. They used to say, قليل من الماء يكفي العطشان. The thirsty one needs only a little water, appreciates little water. If you're thirsty for it, you'll appreciate little water. And if you're not thirsty, you don't appreciate the little water. So if someone wants it, then any of those reminders, think of this life, and think of death, and think of Allah's bounties on you, think of, think of the phases of your existence. You're here temporarily. Look at you, look at your face. Look at it. سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق. We shall show them our signs in the horizons and in themselves until they recognize it as the truth. Look around you. Just remind them. Look around you and keep looking for the truth until you're satisfied. And that should be enough for them to start the journey. And once they start the journey, they will come across this information and much more.
Will there be a time when the person reaches a point that there's no struggle whatsoever in the heart, meaning that no matter how people praise him and how people he is put in a situation where, for example, some of his karamat will be shown unintentionally. There always has to be a struggle within the hearts that trying to resist the feeling of the likeness of his deeds, or there should be a point where there's no struggle, that he got over it and he's all set. Meaning a struggle, when the struggle exists, is that still a good sign, or indicates short?
That's a little bit controversial. So Ibn al-Qayyim in some way, he said that you have not reached the point of safety until the praise and dispraise of people are equal in your eye. But the Prophet did not say that, because it is counter to human nature. But what I think about the point of equilibrium, the right point of balance, is not to wait until the praise and dispraise of people are equal in your eye, because that may not be humanly attainable. But until the praise and dispraise of people are inconsequential to what you do. Inconsequential. Will have no effect on your course. Your course is this is what you do, you keep doing it because you're doing it for Allah. So if the praise and dispraise of people are completely inconsequential to what you do, you should not ask yourself, you should not be hard on yourself if you like the praise and dislike the dispraise. Because that is only human. But they should be inconsequential. that is when you're clear of the danger. There are different states of childhood, and at a certain age they are capable of abstract thinking. If we are teaching kids in weekend school, how can we differentiate or group them by age, etc., and what knowledge should we focus on them? I think that you would have up until 4, and between 4 to 7, between 7 to 10, and after 10 to about 15, and then after 15, they should be all together. And that will take a long time, but there is sense behind this. So, but in the interest of time, so that we respect the time and so on, I will not explain the details behind this. But 4 up until 4, 4 to 7, 7 to 10, 10 to 15, and after 15. This is how you divide them. If that will be too much division, and you want to merge some, you want to merge them a little bit more, then you will take the kids from 1 to 7, put them together, 7 to 10, 10 to 15, and then everybody should be together. With some flexibility, like you could make the 15, 14, you could make the 10, 11, you could make the 7, 6, with some flexibility. But those are the cutoffs between different stages. 15 is adulthood, according to the majority of the scholars, and according to the Sunnah, for various reasons. That's the beginning of adulthood. Then, happen to be the age of where the child is liable for not praying, and the child gets punished by the parent for not praying. It happened to be the age that's so close to abstract operational thinking, which they, Erik Erikson says that this happens at age 11. So 10, it's about 10 years. And 7 to 6 or 6 to 7 is when you start concrete operational thinking. You have some degree of operational thinking. And before 6 is when it is not recommended, and some people do not recommend this before 7. Didactic schooling is not recommended before 6 or before 7. Most of it will be about feelings and just very little information, and the rest is about just feelings, good feelings, suggestibility, inferences that will sink into their minds without education, in the classical sense of the word, but inferences and suggestions that will sink into their minds. You have 1 minute, Abu Sumayis.